Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to our dual LA book launch celebrating the latest from Author Kayzakian and Rooja Mohassessy. Please give it up for them. My name is Jimmy Vega. I'm the Assistant Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. And as an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center, located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the literary institution we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We are currently offering a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop, currently facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop, currently facilitated by James Cushing. We also have a number of paid in-person workshops, such as Flash and Four More, a creative writing experience with Tisha Marie Reichley Aguilera, with more workshops slated for the year in coming days. And aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. Next week, we're excited to launch our new literary series titled Skulls and Stairs. Our new series seeks to have poets take over the infamous staircase of the original Venice City Hall building, aka the staircase that's right outside this theater. The series showcases poets beyond texts dwelling on the Gothic and the illuminating void. This initial installment features performances and readings from Ingrid M. Calderon Collins and Alan Sobrino, to name a few. Additionally, towards the end of July, we'll feature the LA book launch of Mopes by Kenneth Reeves. Winner of the Fence Modern Poet Series Prize, Mopes is a provocative, political, and paradigm shifting coming-of-age story about revolutionary disappointment. So please come back for all of that. Check us out on our socials at bblitarts and beyondbaroque.org. And finally, we offer several memberships to Beyond Baroque, starting at $60 for an individual membership. Memberships allow us to offer these programs for free, such as tonight. It also gives us access to free weekly community workshops, and it provides y'all with a discount for intensive paid workshops as well. A big thanks to our wonderful staff, our executive director, Quentin Ring, our programs coordinator, Ivan Salinas, our intern in the bookstore, Genesis Perez, and our man in the booth, facilities coordinator, Eric Alberg. Please give it up for them. And a big thanks to all of our authors tonight. I feel like in many ways it's been a long time coming. We've been really organizing this reading for a while, and we're really excited to feature all of them. First up, we have Emily John Tobias, an American author and poet with her debut story collection, Monarch, forthcoming by Black Lawrence Press in May 2024. She is an award-winning writer whose work has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, along with honorable mentions, and has been featured in literary journals such as Santa Clara Review, Talking River Review, The Opiate Magazine, the Ocotillo Review, Type House Literary Magazine, Tamaha Literary Review, Big Muddy, and elsewhere. Midwestern raised, she now lives and writes on the coast of Southern California. She holds an MFA in writing from Pacific University, Oregon. Please give it up for Emily John Tobias.
Thanks, Jimmy. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for coming. I am beyond grateful to Beyond Baroque for hosting this collaboration. Thank you, Jimmy, so much for inviting me and for your constant kindness. While it's true that my forthcoming debut is a story collection, I am truly a poet at heart, and I have to say that being invited to read fiction while sharing the stage with Jose and Arthur and my dear, dear friend Rooja is such an honor. So many thanks to these amazing poets for sharing this space with me. Tonight, I will read from a story in my forthcoming collection titled Monarch, out by Black Lawrence Press next May. The piece was first published in Talking River Review and reprinted in the Opiate magazine. This is from Nova. First time I laid eyes on Jones, I didn't know I would be tortured, gently, how I would come to rest just beneath her skin. The thing was never meant to be permanent, me and Jones. But here I am, inked, a stunted nail, the jailhouse hammer, nuzzled into the tracked crook of her left arm. I'd gone East LA to Santa Monica on the cheapest bus I found. Drank a pint pinched off my newest foster brother some days before. Off the bus, I walked drunk station to Venice Beach Boardwalk. Walls were neon, animated surfaces and sidewalks, all done up and painted like clowns, a whole stilted scene. Light flecked with spit and smoke came off the beach. A girl gathered cash in a hat from people wanting to pet her snake. One old guy, long hair, shirtless, had an electric plugged into an amp. I smelled cotton candy, sweetness on him when he screamed voodoo child at me. The guy's eyes were shaded, but I felt him watching me when he wailed. I kept my eyes down. I found a cracked palm tree to lean against and crouched off the lip of a curb somewhere near the corner of 25th and Speedway. Green fronds reminded me of paradise in some kid's book, brittle at the ends, browning against blue. Before I ever saw her, I felt yanked, like I was downwind from some raw, musky scent of hers. Cat called. I looked ahead, and there she was, big and noble, out of nowhere, like my mama's old ceramic Madonna, Jones. She was savage, crude, as if sculpted from the Venice sand, watered by its sea, occupying every inch of her matte black 1974 Chevy Nova. She rolled up, jammed to a full diagonal stop, front right tire bouncing off the curb. You, she said, like I was something worth noticing. Get in, you're driving. Everything changed, like when it first gets in you, as I laid eyes on that tattooed wonderland of a woman. Blasphemy was scribbled on all her bends and creases, and a splash of color like city neon in a rainstorm, red puckered lips, a kiss to go with the fuck you hacked on the underside of her soft wrist. Each ink touched another, a skin thread tapestry that was Jones. I tossed my bag to the back and settled into the Nova's driver's seat. That bag was all I brought from the foster home. I held my breath while Jones situated herself, moving aside CD cases, Nirvana and Mazzy Star, kicking up feathers and sand from the floor. Jones had a thing for feathers, wore one hanging off each ear from a steel hook that could catch a fish. From her seat, Jones looked me all over like syrup running down a stack, thick and slow. "What's your name, love?" she asked. "Betty," I said, soft. "You don't look like a Betty," she said. My eyes shifted down, then straight ahead. "Drive us along the coast, Betty." I took the Pacific Coast Highway south. Visions of sunset in Mexico, a tulipan I'd picked just to tuck the stem behind her ear. Jones flipped the old knob and the radio buzzed from static to some oldie station where all the songs sounded like they were straight off vinyl. I recognized their voices, Beach Boys, Good Vibrations. "Don't you just love this fucking song, Betty?" She stuck her arm out the window, cupped her palm against the wind. I looked over, and then she had her whole head out that damn window, cheeks ballooning with the chorus. She came back into the car and turned the radio down. "You ever been banged on a Harley riding backwards, Betty?" I shook my head. "One of my exes was a big old motherfucker, all ego and attitude, belly and beard to boot. Tons of cash, though." She reached toward her feet, came up with a spoon off the floorboard. "Used to call me Arco, after the gas station, 'cause that's where we met. I jumped on that bike and rode him ass backwards and sideways through the next few years. First ride on that Harley was at 60 miles per hour down Speedway against the boardwalk." Jones slid the bandana out of my back pocket, held one end by her teeth, tied the other around her left arm. I kept my gaze ahead. Next time I looked, she was drawing out the rig. As her arm fell limp to her lap, she said, "That whole stretch has seen this treasure." It was sugary the way she said it, slow-moving and tacky like drying tar. The spoon slipped from her fingers to the floor, head nodding, bouncing off to the side. I turned the radio back up, sneaking glances at her as I drove. The crinkle of her forehead told me less of age than experience. She was barely covered, decked out in sheer vintage rags, revealing many of her sagas. But somehow, even back then, I saw the innocence she hid, like how she wrapped her arm with my bandana after, as if tending to a child's wound. I patted her on the shoulder. "Hey, you got any of that left for me?" She opened her eyes, looked at me above her shades. "Pull over there," she said. "My ocean is calling." I drove her close to the boardwalk. She slinked out before I had the Nova in park. I followed. She swayed, one long stride crossing over the next, hips moving in time with how the waves crashed. Feathers off her earlobes blew back. She outstretched her long arms, fingers strumming ocean air like she knew just how to play the way the air moved her. When she spun toward me, she smiled. She smiled at me, then whirled back toward the water. I smelled her in the wind, vanilla and dirt. I breathed in Venice. Sewers and smoke from good weed, bodies and skin that had been there all day long, all along. I saw the old guy from before, same spot, electric in hand. His shirt was on this time. He'd taken his glasses off. "Sweet Jane, sweet Jane," he sang and looked at me again. I met his eyes, nodded my head. I knew then he belonged there. I looked for Jones, couldn't tell where she ended and the shore began. I caught her feathers again, and she was like the black raven itself, swooped and circling. Sun settled, tourists retreated, Venice rolled onto her back into night, and all the shit came out of hiding like fleas from a dog's belly. The place seemed inebriated. Against the boardwalk, Jones smoldered, and Venice flared with buzzed freaks like hungry flies. The tide bellowed behind them, and I heard an echo, a whisper in the rumble, an old familiar like my mother's. "There's something mystical here." And I was intoxicated, drunk on her voice, Venice. All for her, all for you, my queen, I wanted to scream, overtaken by her untamed sea. Venice and Jones, they collapsed me. I went forward onto the beach into her darkness. When I walked up, two guys stood near Jones, around a heap of newspapers and trash. One arranged the pile while the other set his boombox against a box of Red Stripe. "Skeet, play me a song," Jones said. "I need to dance." Skeet tuned the box to some reggae station. "Bob Marley, good shit," he said, and lit a joint. She rose then, Jones, sidled toward me singing, "There's a natural mystic blowing through the air." I smelled her above the fire, through the wind. She had Skeet's coat around her shoulders. Fire glow rose to meet her wings, lifted like a phoenix. "You cold, love?" she said when she wrapped her arms around my shoulders, pulling me into the coat. "I'm good," I said into her chest. Never been better, I thought. She tossed the jacket aside and pulled away from me, but we stayed touching. "Skeet, joint," she said, then took it from his hand to balance between her lips. She ran her hands down the length of my arm, locked her hands around mine. We spun as one toward the sea. Full moon dangled way out there like a light bulb from some invisible chain. Scattered light gathered into a narrow strip down the beach, and we were on stage. We were the Venice stars. We were her night. We flew faster, dug our heels in closer, torsos leaning back, her hands securing my wrists, mine around her forearms. I was standing on the tracks, and Jones was my train, blurred across the shore, smudged into Venice's papery waves. Her teeth shone crests when she smiled. I caught x-rays of her in the light when she sang, like I could see right through her. We laughed. She stopped. I fell. We piled atop one another, rolling on the sand. We walked back to the fire, arms locked. Skeet had a bottle in his hand. "Where's the other dude?" Jones asked. "He bounced," Skeet said. "Looks like you ladies are stuck with me." I stepped toward Skeet. "You got beers for us?" I asked. He handed me two. I opened one for Jones, walked it over to her. When she looked up at me then, I saw a snake in place of a dragon. She was shrunken. Her arms rested on her knees, head hanging between. I shoved the beer toward her. Here, I said. Can't. Why not? Feel sick. Drink it. Need something stronger. Quick. Got any cash? Not shit. Fuck. She put her head back down. I set the bottle beside her, stood up to face the water. Venice was coming closer, her tide rising toward our fire. Let's go, I said to her. She didn't move. Skeet's jacket was on the ground. When I turned around, there was Skeet, right in front of me, all up on me, not more than a foot away from my front. I stepped to the side to try and get around him. He moved with me. Come on, man. Let's dance, newcomer. You don't belong here yet. Don't forget. He moved toward me, but I ducked back, grabbed the jacket, and stood up. Here, I said, take it. Skeet took the jacket and tossed it toward Jones, landing at her backside. Then there was just me and him. He grabbed my shoulders and pulled me toward him. He lifted one leg, wrapped it around my knees, locked me in. He put his hand on the back of my head, lightly at first, pat, pat, then stronger. He flattened my face into his chest. His palm was across my cheek, pushing, squeezing. He fisted my hair close to the scalp, pulled back. My face was pointed toward that light bulb moon on a chain, beyond the open holes of his nostrils, beyond the fire mirrored in his red eyes like a demon. I felt her behind me, Jones. She put the coat around my shoulders. She had her hand over Skeet's against my head, seemed to pry his fingers loose of my hair. He released. I fell back with my hand to my head. She took my place. She moved her body against his. No woman, no cry, she sang, while she tiptoed her fingers along his front up to his face. Then she had her hands entwined with his, swaying, dancing. She pulled him closer, turned away from him. She was facing me when she bent at the knees, still holding on to him, rubbing her whole backside along the length of him, down his legs to his feet. She crouched, leaning back into him, then snaked her way back up again. She did not lose my eyes. Jones reached forward, grabbed a bottle stuck in the sand. She held it by its neck, then crack against a burning log. She turned his arm to him, arm up. He pulled his face from the bottle, busted at the bottom. Then she just looked at him, grinned, and said, "There's more than one way to fuck a man." Walking back to the Nova, I slipped my hands down the pocket of Skeet's jacket, pulled back, and there was his wallet. When I passed it to Jones, she took the cash and tossed the empty thing at me high enough to catch. I missed. Bent down to grab it from the ground. When I stood up, she grabbed my face, pulled my lips toward her, and landed a quick kiss. The kiss was for the cash, not for me, not really. Shit had little to do with me back then, but I'd take it. I tossed the rest of the wallet into the nearest bin, wiped my hands down the front of the coat, and threw it in. Thank you.
Emily, John, Tobias, folks, please give it up. Next up, we have former Wednesday night workshop facilitator in the house, Jose Hernandez Diaz, a 2017 NEA Poetry Fellow. He is the author of The Fire Eater. We have copies in the bookstore for sale. And the forthcoming full-length Bad Mexican, Bad American. His work appears in the American Poetry Review, Boulevard, Colorado Review, Huizache, the Iowa Review, Poetry Magazine, the Southern Review, the Yale Review, and in the Best American Non-Required Reading. He teaches creative writing for Hugo House, Lighthouse Writers Workshop, the Writers Center, and elsewhere. He serves as a poetry mentor for the Adroit Journal's Summer Mentorship Program. Please give it up for Jose Hernandez Diaz.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you, Jimmy, Beyond Baroque. I'm honored to read here with Rooja, Arthur, Emily. Congratulations on the forthcoming collections. I got my copy earlier. I'm going to read some new work. I know that next year I'm going to be reading a lot from the forthcoming collection, so I'm going to read some new work from a new manuscript called Portrait of the Artist as a Brown Man. And so, yeah, all of these are from that collection. So I'm going to start off with the poem that was in Poem a Day, selected by Diane Seuss. And I was just honored to be chosen by her, one of my favorite poets. This one is called Hey. It's actually the first poem in the manuscript, the new manuscript. Hey, with the intention of abandoning the hierarchies of capitalism, the machinery of thought. Hey, with the desire of growing lilacs in our community garden, bougainvillea running along the wall. Hey, as we denounce the walls of isolation and marginalization. No to the elite. No to centuries of settler colonialism, their insistence we are immigrants on our own land. Hey, at midnight, beneath the candle of the moon, our arms interlocked like laurels painted onto the rims of Renaissance paintings. Hey, I miss you. I never even met you. Let's take a deep dive into each other's bookshelves until we find oceans of imagery and metaphors we can discuss, dissect, not for ego's sake, but for love. I forgot to mention that this actually started as like a Twitter trend where people were writing like, hey, and then just like jumping into serious content because like where everyone's isolated and lonely and desperate. So I should have mentioned that. This next one is going to be published tomorrow in Tri-Quarterly online. It's called Ode to the Piñata. You're always there for me, dear Piñata. Every year you greet me when I need you most, when I'm 1 year closer to death. You remind me to take a second and enjoy sweet dulces. You have a deep philosophy. Swing harder, eat candy. What utter wisdom. Sartre himself would be proud. Piñata, your colors are as majestic as a rainbow swaying in the sky. Sure, I'm fully grown and don't need you anymore. But you bring me happiness, and damn it, that's important. No, I don't eat candy anymore, but a chocolate or two won't hurt. Besides, seeing my sobrinos run to get scattered dulces is worth any price or trouble. Maybe I will put a bouquet of carnations inside of you, sweet piñata. Maybe a dozen tacos de asada, al pastor. All kidding aside, you've been in our familia since the beginning, even before los abuelitos. I know you'll stick around till the end when the merry world explodes like a spinning piñata. Thank you. This next one, I teach generative workshops, a lot of times surreal prose poetry workshops, and I wrote a prompt about hanging out with two deceased idols, and the two idols that I picked were Salvador Dali and Diego Maradona. So this one is called The Summer I Was Good Friends with Salvador Dali and Diego Maradona. I was having coffee with Salvador Dali and Diego Maradona at a hippie coffee shop in Venice Beach one summer. Dali insisted on having black tea. He said he already is drugs or something subversive. They both said I sounded American. Well, I was born in America, I tell them, but I'm Latino, Mexican-American, I say. I asked Dali who his favorite soccer team is. La Barcelona, he says, as he examines the marigolds on the coffee table. I asked Maradona who is his favorite painter. La Frida Kahlo, he says. After we finish our coffees, we walk along the Venice coast. Suddenly, Maradona dives into the ocean. He swims alongside a dolphin and a local surfer. Dali and I laugh out loud. Later, we lay on the sand and watch the sunset. At the end of the night, the moon comes up like a seagull on a street lamp. We go to a local bar called The Clam and talk politics and literature with local lady surfers. I tell them my name is Roberto Duran, former world champion. We have a good laugh as we drink our Mexican beers and dance the night away to cumbias. This next one was written after I got billed for a semester at Denver Community College, but I've never been to Denver or Colorado. And I have a very common name, Jose Hernandez, and I had Diaz so that it's like not as common, you know. I don't have to go clear my name all the time. So that's what it was. I had read there before, and it turns out there was a student that didn't pay their fee with the same name, and somehow I was in the system just because I read there. I don't know. So this next prose poem is called "Why Does Kafkaesque Nonsense Always Happen to Me?" I'm getting billed for a fall 2022 semester at Denver Community College. The problem is I've never enrolled, nor have I ever been to Denver, Colorado. Why does Kafkaesque nonsense always happen to me? Sometimes I feel like just throwing in the towel. The pugilist life isn't for me. I'm a lover, not a cage fighter. I should have been a famous ballerino or playwright. There's enough drama in my life to write a new literary canon. The gloomy existential novel I'm currently living is called Why Does Kafkaesque Nonsense Always Happen to Me? Sometimes the poems just happen, right? Like we're just minding our own business and they're like this absurd scenario just like begging to get written about. This next one is called Train Out of Town, again written in one of my surreal workshops. The prompt was to write about taking public transportation and then getting lost in a bizarre place. Train out of town. I was taking the subway to work in the city on a Monday morning in June. The clouds dragged along like an El Greco painting. I was exhausted. I'd spent the weekend partying with other painters and artists as we celebrated an art gallery exhibition. The name of the exhibition was The Forgotten Modern Masters. We called ourselves Masters in Modern and Forgotten as we toasted the night away to our relevance. No one dared to look at the clock. The moon was an intimate friend. Now, Monday morning, I sluggishly stared out of the window as the train slithered through the city like a snake in a damp field. I noticed the train was going in an odd direction. Were we going backwards? Where were we exactly? We were no longer in the city, that much was certain. We were in a desert landscape now somewhere. When I got off the train, I saw a family of jackrabbits running by and tumbleweed, but not much else. No one else got off the train. What train? It had disappeared. I tried to call for help, but all I heard was my echo in the fading distance. I was alone. I took a deep breath. I kept my head up. I took out a paintbrush, easel, and canvas from my suitcase. I painted my immediate surroundings, a jackrabbit, tumbleweed, nopales reaching for the sky, the zealous sun, the barren soil. Thank you.
More noise for Jose Hernandez Diaz, folks. Give it up. Always a pleasure, Jose. Thank you. Next up, Arthur Kayzakian is the winner of the 2021 Black Lawrence Immigrant Writing Series Award for his collection, The Book of Redacted Paintings, in the bookstore. Please pick one up. Which also was selected as a finalist for the 2021 Philip Levine Prize for Poetry. He is the recipient of a Creative Writing Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. He is also the winner of the Finishing Line Press Open Chapbook Competition for his chapbook, My Burning City. He has been a finalist for the Locked Horn Press Chapbook Prize, two Sylvia's Press Chapbook Prize, the C.D. Wright Prize, the Sunken Garden Poetry Prize, and the Black River Chapbook Competition. He is a contributing editor at Poetry International and a recipient of the Minas Savas Fellowship. He serves as the poetry chair for the International Armenian Literary Alliance. His work has appeared in or is forthcoming from several publications, including Tao's Journal of International Poetry and Art, Portland Review, Chicago Review, Nat, Brute, Michigan Quarterly Review, Witness Magazine, and Prairie Schooner. Please make some noise for Arthur Kayzakian.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. It's a pleasure here to be with Emily, Rooja and Jose, to read here with all of you. My book is the Book of Redacted Paintings. Hi, I'm Arthur. The reason I'm gonna have some visuals for you today is, yeah. Here's our first poem. Iran, 1979, My Father Under the Stars. A man stands by a redwood, a blood cluster of leaves beneath him. Later that night, lit windows in the distance, the prize for this missing man causes a fluorescence of body heat, moving amid the trees. Dogs and men, flashlights, brushing through the woods. Shred of cloth torn from his dark edge of a branch. In some version of this, the season my father was late from. A3853, my father, A3853, my A3853 doesn't, my talk doesn't, A3853, he was made. When my A3853 was made, talk much doesn't talk, resident much talk, my father, resident my talk, doesn't A3853 much, he doesn't talk much. He was made a resident of Iran. My father is A3853. So this kind of just follows the narrative. I'm just going to read it. Rain. After he hugs his family goodbye, he passes umbrellas and park benches, sees the edge of a vexed flower petal, and thinks the flower is a man off to war. Without looking back, he can hear his children kicking laughter in and out of him. His wife's throat, a gleam of sandlight. 15 years later, rain beats out a puddle in the shape of his body. Okay. Um, this is inspired by Diana Coy Nguyen's Ghost of. I don't know if you've read that. It's an incredible book. And I just found this. Okay. Iran, 1979, My Father Under the Stars. A man stands by a redwood, a blood cluster of leaves beneath him. Later that night, lit windows in the distance, the prize for this missing man causes a fluorescence of body, moving amid the trees, dogs and man flash, ushing the woods, a tiny shred of cloth torn from, ket hanging on the thin dark edge of a brand does not exist, but in some version, as stolen in winter, the season my fought in the war, a man stands by a redwood, the distance, the prize for this a fluorescence of body heat movement, dogs and men torn from his jacket, not exist, but in some version of the story, in winter, the season my father was late from, or a man stands by a redwood, a blood vest beneath him. Later that night, lit window, instance, the prize for the missing man cause essence of body heat, moving and the tree and men, flashlights, brushing the woods, red of cloth torn from his jacket, hanging on the dark edge of a branch. This painting does not exist, but in some version of this story, it was stolen in winter, the season my father was late from the war. A man stands by a redwood. The poem I planned to write was about a painting gone missing, a scrape of grief. Someone felt it necessary to censor the wall. Someone was touched enough to commit a crime. I planned to list an artifact of unrecovered art, the weight an imprint leaves. You can almost see its molecules irritate the air. A filament extracted, a small flash if you look into the past. I planned to write about theft after war, how it disrupts the museum's flirtation with catastrophe, how someone rode the wave of violence with a brush to bring the reader close to the heat of exploitation, to feel the cut left by displacement like picking up pieces of broken glass. Instead, I am writing about how I woke up today, thinking about all the times I never said, I love you. For all the sugar cubes dropped in my tea, and all you got is a slight nod. You can feel it when we see each other, can't you? These words missing from my mouth in the shape of a kiss. Okay. Evidence. Specimen A, 3.7 kilograms of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Notes. Weight denotes a molecular structure imprinted on the wall after burglary. Specimen B, DNA of a shadow on a panel of glass. Notes. Sample suggests the burglar's shadow brushed the living room window at room temperature. Clues. Audible. I want to feel repeated on a record player. Visible. A half scratched dark scar. Witnesses and statements. Dishwasher. I didn't see anything. Door. I didn't see anything. Window. I didn't see anything. Something must have slipped through me. Room temperature. I didn't see anything, but the allegory of my light particles has a debt to settle with the wall. Wall. I want to feel whole again.
Dear, we regret to inform you that our forensic search of the portrait, My Father Under the Stars, 1979, has turned up inconclusive. Therefore, the artwork cannot be recovered. With a lack of DNA to identify theft, we are unable to continue our investigation. We are also unable to categorize the claim as stolen artwork in the National Stolen Art File. While there is a multitude of culprits still at large, we cannot determine the entity or individuals involved in said criminal activity. However, the investigation is not without evidence. While our findings may not be permissible in a court of law, nor have we gathered enough sample to devise a task force needed to continue our search, what we did manage to scrape from the alleged scene of the crime is bewildering, to say the least. Our forensic scientists, while measuring the rapid change in air molecules hovering over the wall that held the missing painting, conclude that even though there is not enough material to document biotic particles in the perimeter of where the portrait was stolen, our tests find something vapid, almost cryptobiotic, invading the molecular structure of the air. In other words, the DNA tests show the shadow of hands without proof of those living in our timeline. All we can do is rule this test out as an anomaly a rupture in the field of experimentation. We do apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused and do encourage you to contact our department with any questions or concerns. Dr. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Art Crime Team.
April 28th, 2021.
So that was the poet Tom Likas. He's sitting in the crowd. He's the guy with the other fedora. Stain on the wall. When potential buyers arrive touring the house, they stop at the wall and ask about the stain. I apologize and assure them it is not blood. That the absence of artwork is a casualty of migration. I say this with the smile that bears the blueprint of my father hanging on the wall inside me. My asylum is a history and its red coat of time. My oath to the road, a wall scar from a taken painting, a box of police reports. My asylum is a drumbeat fighting the hang of time, a window of falling bombs, a chart of redacted names, a tower of laughter, red pressed into the trees, daughter to my water slang. My asylum is the thin run of a sunlit child, the syrup of flag blood, torpid velocity of a dark stain, the dance of bandana and fire. My asylum is resisting arrest by a chain of flowers, a reflection of trees lost in the mirror, the stranger who stole my skeleton, a subversion of Radio Farsi, a quorum of birds. My asylum is. So these next poems are, it's called Bibliography of Paintings That Never Made It to the Wall. The collection of this book has to do with withdrawn paintings, decommissioned paintings, destroyed paintings in fire, and mainly paintings that don't exist, paintings that exist in my mind because I wish I could have painted them. These are paintings that do not exist, but someone should have painted them. All right. Bibliography of Paintings That Never Made It to the Wall, The Fountain, 1982. We know that surrender feels like flagpoles stabbed on the corners of Trafalgar Square, across the marble fountain of Apollo squirting water, a string of domestic shops. The stones on the sidewalk glitter from the sun. We traveled over the salt to get here, and now to witness a kind of fight we are not accustomed to. Nair, Nair, my father says, with a camera hung around his neck. His migration makes him a spectator. My mother then points. Why? A boy kicked his mother to the ground. We watch as his red balloon floats over the fountain. My Father Under the Stars, 1979. A man stands by a redwood, a blood cluster of leaves beneath him. Later that night, lit windows in the distance. The prize for this missing man causes a fluorescence of body heat moving amid the trees. Dogs and men, flashlights brushing the woods. A tiny shard of cloth torn from his jacket, hanging on the thin, dark edge of a branch. This painting does not exist, but in some version of this story, it was stolen in winter, the season my father was late from the war. And Physiology of a Dream, 2007. My dreams leak from my ears again. A warm, dark dye stained on my pillow. A filmy substance that tingles at my fingertips like small bolts of electricity. Carpet friction. My therapist says drama can induce liquid from serotonin during REM. We used to fuck standing up in the narrow hallway leading to my room. We never made it to the bed, and I suspect we hated lying down because it meant surrender to tradition. I remember our bodies collapsed, tangled, and a self living inside me who wanted to die. We lit cigarettes in the half dark. Our smoke snaked around one another in the air, then vanished. Sometimes I dream of giving you a lighter before we kiss. And in my dream, I walk around with a taste of mint on my lips for days. But always, I wake up wet from the ears, remembering only half my dream, the other half sunk into my pillow. Guard by the door, 1979. We shut the blinds because the guard was coming. He had a swanky green jacket on. He could fill a grave with his words, and we wanted to fill his mouth with cemetery soil. When he knelt by my side, his breath smelled of sunflower seeds and salt from the river, the one he goes to wishing the world was beautiful. The guard took a deep drag from his chewed filter. We watched his cherry light up, his jaw bolden, before he pressed the lit end to my skin. Mental note. The field between artwork and a wall stripped of its art is the sad craft of hands. To be held can strike a room out of its emptiness and leave a craving for the odor of someone leaving. Someone who needs a signature as proof of the fire that parted them. The sweat it takes to love. The body salt of the burglar who blackens the wall, but only the wall can feel it.
April 28th, 2021. 8724 East Cypress Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 91208. Dear, we regret to inform you that our record for the portrait My Father Under the Stars, 1979, indicates the painting does not exist. After several weeks of searching our inventory, we are convinced this painting has never been painted. In no way do we assume your claim is fraudulent, nor do we assume that you are not of sound mind and body. We behoove you to check the spelling of your title in question. In addition, many victims who claim theft have experienced something being taken away from them emotionally, as if the missing item equates to a death in the family. This sort of matter needs further counseling. Since we have encountered an unusual request for a painting redacted from reality, we have taken the liberty to include our trauma, loss, and therapy department in this response to your claim. Our therapists are qualified experts in trauma investigation and will keep the content of your sessions confidential. Here are a few questions that we hope can be of assistance in your efforts for recovering from loss. Perhaps you saw the painting in a dream. Studies suggest our dreams blend into our realities when our bodies hold traumas from our past. Has there been any notable violence in your father's history? Are you allergic to paintings? Are you allergic to the state? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you hold any ill feelings about the way the country conducts business with art? Are you resentful of the government or any establishment that requires your duty? Do you have an itch to strip property from its owner? Are you afraid of something being taken away from you? While these questions feel intrusive, our goal is to process your claim. Please take this letter as an encouragement to continue your search for your stolen artwork as you take your endeavors elsewhere. The Art Restoration Center, Trauma, Loss, and Art Therapy Department. 3756 Ravage Lane, New York, New York, 34562, East Coast Region.
Thank you so much.
Arthur Kayzakian, folks. Give it up, make noise. Last but certainly not least, Rooja Mohassessy is an Iranian-born poet and educator. She is a MacDowell Fellow and an MFA graduate of Pacific University, Oregon. Her debut collection, When Your Sky Runs Into Mine, in the bookstore as well, was the winner of the 22nd Annual Elixir Poetry Award. Her poems and reviews have appeared in Narrative Magazine, Poet Lore, Rhino Poetry, Southern Humanities Review, Calyx Journal, Ninth Letter, Cream City Review, The Adroit Journal, New Letters, The Florida Review, Poetry Northwest, The Pinch, The Rumpus, The Journal, and elsewhere. Please give it up for Rooja Mohassessy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Beyond Baroque, for having us. And it's an honor to be sharing this space with you, Arthur, Jose, and Emily. And thank you all for being here. I was telling friends, usually there are like 5 people in the audience. So this is kind of amazing, Jimmy. It's your doing, I think, and everybody else. So tonight, Eric, thank you. Can we start from the beginning? I don't think so. I hope. Right, now we can go back a few more slides. Keep going back. It's good. We can start right here. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. I'm going to be reading from my collection that came out a few months ago, When Your Sky Runs Into Mine, and it's an ekphrastic collection, and it's inspired by the art of Bahman Mohassessy, a prominent Iranian painter and sculptor. He passed away in 2010, and he was often referred to as the Persian Picasso, or the father of modern art in Iran. Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Thank you, Eric. I'm gonna need my glasses for this. This first poem is in memory of a 13-year-old boy. His name was Mohammad Hossein Fahmideh. During the Iran-Iraq War, which lasted 8 years from 1980 to 1988, I was there in Iran for the first 4 years of the war. And in 1980, this boy sort of became famous or infamous in Tehran. And so this poem came in response to this event where the kid wanted to go to the front lines, the 13-year-old boy, and fight in the war. And he left, unbeknownst to his parents, the front line. And at one point, when it looked like the Iraqi army was winning the battle, he wrapped himself up in grenades and threw himself under a tank. And because of the explosion, the Iraqis thought that the land was mined, and they retreated. And so the Iranian army won the battle that day. And they made of the boy a martyr, and his pictures were everywhere. And this poem it's a ghazal, or a ghazal, as some people say. And it's in the voice of the mother of the child. Khorramshahr, 1980. In memory of Mohammad Hossein Fahmideh. We were soft-fed the sweet dirt of our homeland, each day some new blessings of war. Husband, I tipped that olive beret over your hazel eyes, dazzled by the trappings of war. May this embroidered tulip keep you, I prayed. Stitching God to your chest, 4 double-edged crescent swords soldered to a dagger, the flower weapons of war. Once you left us, our son, flushed as a redbud, his temples wrapped in a green headband, stood shoulder to shoulder with his friend and recited for me his lessons of war. Remember how they chased that ball past twilight? Now here they sit after school, cross-legged on the Tabrizi rock, bowing with the teardrop medallions under the naked bulb. They rock to and fro, their voices broken with the sweet cadence of surahs. Husband, our home is a nest for amorous nestlings of war. They begged me to string their plastic keys to paradise. With this we'll hold fast to the rope of Hussein, they swore. The Imam says we, the children, are the angel caresses of war. How I snapped that day. You are 13, I cried, too young to be drafted. Oh, they cooed that old love song and knife in my ear. Beheaded, trampled, grandson lamb of the prophet, we longed to be his rose essence of war. In the doorway, I held the holy book over their heads. They passed under 3 times, rose to their toes, kissed the golden spine. They promised to hold ajar the gates of heaven for me. O husband, look for them at the front lines. Dear God, watch over my adolescence of war. On a clear Thursday, Mohammad Fahmideh wrapped his body in a shroud of grenades and cried, "O God, pull the pins. Roll me down these green hills of Khorramshahr. Husband, won't you come home now? In the courtyard, a lone mourning dove now sings of war." This next one is from my grandmother. I used to like to pray with my grandmother and to fast during Ramadan with her. And usually children are not allowed to fast. And so I would keep pestering her. And eventually one year when I was about 10 or so, she gave in and she said, well, you can do a half-day fast. And so this is kind of about that. Ramazan in Tajrish for Madar. You nudged me with a whisper to rise an hour before Azan from under the thick of dove feathers warm with your love for God and me, the musty grandchild who had rushed the weekdays to arrive at you, and you were already more in love and old like walnut trees. Little did I understand of the hours past the shuffle of shadows, why they felt solicitous, safe only at your home like uncles, who dropped their manliness at your door, removed their shoes, and stooped through the narrow frame to greet you. Whether I hurried out of your bed to meet God, at my paisley prayer mat, the cotton janamas you hemmed by hand, or to putter after you, out and into sunlit rooms, was moot. Little did I understand of the prayer in your gate. For the faint, dehydrated child, the afternoon hours ran from the setting sun, while your white chador shifted faithfully about you, sprinkled with flowers, differential with the remaining minutes. Though too young to fast, even then I knew when I pestered you with a 10-year-old's dogged demands to rouse me for Sahari, the day-old lavash we tore like a promise between us, buttered at near dawn, and to keep our secret from Maman and Baba. I knew in your low cloud voice that would nudge my sleeping cheek only once, did you think I would not hear you? In the reluctance of it lodged the caress of those childhood days. This next one's from my mom. Believers for Fariba. When he said, they're deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return, God meant, had we died in her arms, my mother would have carried on spoon-feeding until certain we were safely enshrined, our halos on exhibit. Nor did she turn to salt. Even now she looks back, though unsure of what exactly was looted, the year the milk of the rubber tree on the back porch dried up. She couldn't hear, but they carried away the grating rattle of her pots, giggles that died at dinner. Hunger stayed and reached with our thin manacled mouths for rationed wafers that perched higher on the shelf where nothing wished to be disturbed. It wasn't like an earthquake. My mother couldn't hear the night sky rip into starry strips. She felt the warheads rumble. Listened with her feet she kept flat under the table. With 2 gold bangles chiming on each of our wrists and the double strand of jasmine wilting on our chests, my mother had meant to say we were believers, though she'd never read the Quran, nor her Diaz. Poems are kind of dark for the most part. Usually I have this first kiss poem that I use to lighten up the mood, but I don't have it tonight. So you're stuck with this poem. This next one is about the moment that I immigrated to the West, and the clash for me of the West, East and West in my mind, for my psyche, was quite difficult and traumatic. And this is, I guess I should say, there was quite a bit of brainwashing already going on at that. This was when the current regime that's still in place was quite well established and going strong in schools. We had many, many more hours of religious studies and recitations of the Quran, and they were brainwashing the children, as you saw with the first poem, right? The kid would go to war like that. So this is the moment where I stepped off the plane in Europe. The immigrant and skin. We'd landed, and on our way to the terminal, I lost myself to a foulard. It toyed in the lenient light of the bus with garden green, then chartreuse. It made no qualms, draped no part of the young woman in order or out of deference, no proper plan in particular. I watched it dip into her cleavage, gradually slip off the curb of one shoulder as though teased by the jolts on the road. She'd left her throat bare, unaware of the tiny tremors rolling with the sip of Evian and the moist syllables that cohered her breath there, very near her travel companion. We were many, our long censored eyes now privy to titillation and play. I, the prepubescent voyeuse, transported by the rippling, the recline of her head, tugged as if in jest by the world ends, a tight crowd mingling in the small of her back. I watched the lovers' heads dovetail the dome sparkling by the window like the shrine of Imam Reza in Mashhad. Then the noise that pealed from the forward thrust of her throat and seized her rouged mouth delayed, tilted like a goldfish come to feed. A mouth like that would have been taped back home, I had no doubt, without questioning, with or without lipstick. I reached for the nape of my neck, paired by the open air. This next one is my silly attempt at assimilation into Western culture. Straniera, which means foreigner in Italian. 2 years into exile and still waiting to fall into place, feel at home in a thong, won't venture out to where she can't touch, heads to the beach daily, like homework. Wades through a bronzed sea of bodies splayed under the late summer Ferragosto sun, pursed at the tips, tanned breasts pull languidly to each side like half-filled leather bags. She looks for an empty patch of beach the size of a janama, spreads the towel, lies back, luxurious bodies of clouds stretch in white marble gestures of Venus crouching at her bath. She rolls onto her belly, undoes the strap, pulls the bikini top from under, firmly pressing her breasts into the heat, the burn of transgression, and turns to bare sandy nipples to the world, though no one is looking. No cupbearer waiting for a sacrificial offering of a swim top. No Roman rite of passage to brave. Clouds carry on, cut across, upstage each other. A low one casts a modest shade, festooned over her like a clean white chador fetched from a line. It was not easy going to a nude beach. Easier now, but this next one, I have some what I call my ranting poem. I have a few, and this is one of them. And I should say it's in the voice of, it's in a male voice of, I guess someone in the host country addressing an immigrant or a refugee. Interview for asylum after Sylvia Plath. Discarding your hijab is non-negotiable, ma'am. I've made a note of the signs of torture on your face, but you'll need to hold in piss till told what's next, insists the officer. Yes, this is a free country, smiles graciously. We are indiscriminate with positions that indulge our kicks. In effect, the process is rather involved, he continues. For starts, you'll need to second-guess, divine a way to ravish. The nude inside of a thigh, the front slit of a skirt will do for openers, though rather common. You'll need to support yourself on your arms and keep at it till we come. It won't be long. Let us examine your profile. Please stand. Scrutinizes her face closely. In time, you'll need to carve and discard the inordinate chunks of your cheeks, reject the ridges of your congenital jaw. Returns to his desk. Now remember, blowjobs should be airy. Be sure to make room. As for your blood, it's thick. It extends too far back. Examining the documents. Have you kept a record? No? Drain it then. Soon you won't be needing it to draw from. Please step up on the scale now. Oh, how inadequate. You clearly cannot endure. Deficient, malinformed, possibly abused during transport, almost dark, from some country, dumb, likely slow to come, artlessly insecure. And your tongue. Utter a few words, would you? Discordant, do you hear it? Can it be tuned? Oh, so quiet. Terrified beyond despair, she'll never serve. Send her back. The assistant points to a clause in the document. She'll be getting old anyhow. There's little we can do for her now. And I'm going to end with this final poem. It doesn't have an image associated with it, and it's for my great-grandmother, who was an amazing woman. She lived to be 100. And I have a bangle that's passed on to me from her. So it's called My Only Bangle. For Khanum June, my great-grandmother, after Lucille Clifton. Today I celebrate my only bangle, my one hand applause, the gold leaf on my family tree, my hand hammered heritage, my blood. Today it refused to slide off a rounded portal, barring my hand in spite of the sweet-talking soap, the slip of cold cream in spite of not matching, my low-cut cocktail dress, my silver choker. It cleaved to knuckle and bone, held me by the wrist, each unalloyed karat ablaze. Here, it whispered. Rub some coal under your eyes before you step out. Then let me hear you pronounce your name. Thank you, everyone.
Rooja Mohassessy, folks, please give it up. And give it up for Jose, Arthur, and Emily. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We do have some light refreshments out in the lobby. Feel free to stick around, hang out, talk with each other. We do have books for sale in the bookstore, and I'm sure some of our authors would be delighted to sign some. So thanks, folks.